our discussion with Dr. Brian Berman, who's a psychologist, and myself, Joe Troncalli. I'm a medical doctor who's an addictionologist. And we've been trying to begin our series here by talking about the third wave of cognitive behavioral therapy, acceptance commitment therapy. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about with Dr. Berman is the whole difference between the second wave of cognitive behavioral therapy and the third wave. Not to get too theoretical, but I think it's very important when you start applying it clinically. If we take patients, for instance, who have been traumatized or suffer from addictions and those sorts of things, one of the things that I believe has been very important, at least in my own practice with patients, since Dr. Berman's done a lot of teaching of these concepts with me, is that we're attempting to get people to actually accept their feelings rather than to get rid of their feelings, which again I believe is sort of a central theme between second wave cognitive behavioral therapy and the third wave. And the thing that I think is so important is we take care of a lot of people who have suffered either trauma or other types of things that have devalued them or caused them a lot of guilt and shame. And the biggest problem that a lot of people have, and Dr. Berman taught me this one, is the concept of them pushing their feelings down rather than basically being able to sit with their feelings. And I don't know if you want to comment on that a little bit. But.
Yeah, sure. So the big difference between the second wave of CBT, which is what we typically call traditional CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and this sort of third wave of CBT, which is more mindfully and acceptance-based, is that the traditional CBT is a symptom and pain reduction approach. So in other words, our focus is to really begin to identify the content of a thought, alter that content so that we can reduce symptoms of emotion and behavior. In the third wave of CBT, especially with acceptance and commitment therapy, we're not really looking to do that at all, right? This is more about accepting thoughts and feelings that pop up and not altering their form or content, but altering their function. So what does that look like clinically? What that means is, rather than say in traditional CBT where you'd find a thought that was distressing to you, you would then challenge that thought and cognitively reconstruct it, where you weigh the evidence for that thought, you weigh the evidence against that thought, and hopefully you come up with either a new or a balanced thought that is not erroneous. Well, from the perspective of the third wave of CBT, thoughts are not necessarily bad or erroneous or need to be changed. Thoughts are neither good or bad. Thoughts are just thoughts. Now, how we respond to those thoughts can be harmful to others. It can kill us, right? So what we want to do is alter not the thought itself, but our relationship with that thought by using a mindful awareness to really hold that thought and feeling in mindfulness, as Dr. Troncalli said, not suppress that thought or feeling, because the thought or feeling is not the bad thing. And hopefully that's going to free us up to choose more adaptive behavior patterns based on values.
And I think that it's much more rational to take the third wave versus the second wave from the standpoint of people being able to get a handle better on the understanding that if they can actually sit with the feeling rather than try to escape the feeling, then they don't have to do a lot of work with that. It's really a question of basically them being able to sort of reframe how things are perceived by them. Again, back to a clinical example, we have patients who frequently have had, again, trauma, these sorts of terrible things that have happened to them. But if they're trying to reframe trauma, there's a tremendous amount of work. There's not a good way of making sense out of that. If you can better accept the fact that you are having those feelings and then be able to move beyond those feelings, I really believe that it's much more practical from a clinical standpoint and much more useful. Again, that's my thought. I believe that it's borne out by the research.
Yeah. It's every human being's natural instinct to want to feel better. It's every human being's natural instinct that when something inside feels dangerous, to try to get rid of it. But the problem is the moment you try to fight away or escape the very thing inside of you that you feel is dangerous, you use a very old system in your body called the fight-flight system, which is your anxiety system. So the more you try to suppress or fight it away, the more you got it. The more you activate the sympathetic nervous system rather than your parasympathetic nervous system. So pushing away thoughts and feelings tends to, at least in the long run, not be very effective. And I think that this kind of treatment really tries to target that. Especially when it comes to addiction, our patients are always trying to feel better. Their lives are run by feeling better, by escaping. They're like Houdini, they're escape artists. That's what they do all day. And then they come to us after it isn't working, to our facility, and say, teach me how to escape appropriately. Well, the thing is that everywhere you go, there you are. There is no escaping your emotions. They're part of your fabric, any more than you can peel your skin off your body or stop your heart from pumping your blood, because they serve a real important function. And as we spend all that time focusing on how to get rid of those feelings and those thoughts, we're no longer living. Life becomes so boxed in because all we can focus on is feeling better, and life gets put on hold. So once again, this is about getting life back, taking life off of hold, unhooking ourselves from this constant agenda to feel better. And by, even though you accept and allow these feelings in, initially it feels bad, because we're no longer fighting it, we actually alter our fight-flight system from a sympathetic back into a parasympathetic state, which is the very thing I think people are looking for to begin with.
And one of the analogies that I learned from Dr. Berman was the beach ball analogy. If you take a beach ball and you try to push it under the water, basically the only power the beach ball then has is the power that you gave it. So by pushing a ball under the water, it only uses the energy that you actually put into it by pushing it under the water, and it comes back and hits you in the face with exactly the same power that you gave the energy to. And what we're constantly trying to teach patients is that instead of giving the energy to pushing that ball down, which will then again only be reactive, and it only wears you out and it only hurts you, if you can sit with the feeling and theoretically or metaphorically put the beach ball to the side and let the wind blow it past you, you haven't used all that energy, you haven't gotten all involved with the feeling or the emotion, and it controls you much less than if you're doing that type of an exercise.
Yeah, I would even add on to that. And thoughts, feelings really do work this way. It is like trying to hold down a beach ball. And the harder you push it down, the harder it bounces up and kind of whacks you in the face, right? And that's what's happening with our patients when they come into our facility, is that when they're using certain drugs like heroin or alcohol, these kinds of things, it's so heavy-handed that it's like trying to tie a cinder block to the beach ball and throwing it into the water. I mean, it will sink for a while, but eventually that ball does wiggle out, and when it does, like a rocket ship, it comes flying out of the water. And that's people in detox, that's people in rehab, the ups and downs that are often talked about. It's got to finally find its way back to center. And here, no, you're no longer fighting the beach ball, but it's settled, and you do have to sort of figure out what you're going to do with that. And do I have to live life maybe carrying a beach ball? Is it uncomfortable? Is it fumbling around? It is. But guess what? I'm living again. And that's the most important thing. You see, because if I'm really good at holding the beach ball, some people are really good at holding down this beach ball, and I get into that groove, and I get the balance right, and I'm a heavier person, I can hold it down there, I might be able to do that. But how long? Until my arms get fatigued. And the whole time I've done this, everybody else at this lake or beach I'm at where I'm holding down the beach ball, they've all left. They're all living their lives. I can't live my life. I can't do anything I value because I'm stuck constantly holding the beach ball. So this is an invitation to let that beach ball up. Is it a ride when it comes up? It is. But it will settle down. And then maybe we can take that beach ball with us to begin living life again and do what we value.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again for watching our video and once again for coming to values-based recovery.